Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay. All right, good. Welcome to the March 4th, 2022 meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. We do not have video capability this evening, so just audio capability. March 7th, what did I say? That's my memo, March 4th. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so if you would rise and join me in saying the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, wanted to announce that the board did have an executive session prior to the meeting this evening to discuss a legal matter. Item number 3 on the agenda, of which there are agendas at the back of the room. If you'd like to grab one of those, you could certainly grab one of those as well too. Item number 3 is public comment for non-agenda items. Tara, anyone emailing in? Okay. Okay, all right. So non-agenda items, public comment. Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to item number 4 is our consent agenda. Number 4A, we have a need for the approval of tonight's March 7th Board of Supervisors meeting agenda. Item number 4B, we have a need for approval of the minutes of the Monday, February 14th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. And we have item number 4C, approval to pay invoices from all funds for a total of $734,571.11. There are several items of note. $65,025 to the township fire companies. That would be 4 fire companies for our first quarter contributions in the amount of $16,256.25 to each fire company. $10,934.05 to Power Mole Sales LLC for 14 wireless headsets for our public works operations. That will be combined with a $1,000 safety grant to offset some of those expenses, and $8,390.70 to Whitmer Public Safety Group for police ammunition. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda?
There are not.
Okay. All right. The consent agenda, what's your interest?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. And the motion's been made by Corey and seconded by Mike. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, old business, 5A. We have a request to reduce financial security for Glick Fire Equipment, 350 Mill Creek Road. Ralph, looks like Township Engineer has recommended $67,052 in reduction. And remaining balance is $44,913.21.
Right. In addition, the Sewer Authority's engineer has also recommended a reduction of the value for sewer facilities.
So this as well too, okay. And the items of note here, obviously the applicant is aware of the items that remain open here, correct? Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the reduction in Glick Fire Equipment, the reduction in escrow account.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Roger, seconded by Corey. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5B. Mr. Car Wash Land Development Plan number 21-29, 2175 Lincoln Highway, a time extension for township action. 90-day time extension request. Ralph, any items of note, concern?
They're continuing to work on comments offered by the township engineer and pursuing necessary DEP approvals. So
Applicants asking for it and township board needs to allow that. Yes, Mike, question.
A comment to that, Ralph. I mean, are we satisfied that they're asking the right questions and they're getting the answers they need? I mean, this is the second time we're doing this.
it hasn't been as smooth as a lot of projects that come through here, but there have been other projects that have had a bumpy road as well. So
It's really about essentially the permitting process, not something particular about the property that is a problem.
I would agree with that. I think there's no reason why their ultimate proposal wouldn't actually happen. They've just got to get all their ducks in a row.
Thank you.
Questions asked? Any other questions? Okay, public, any comments from the public? Okay, we have request for time extension for 90 days, which would put our meeting on June 20th. So the extension would be till July the 5th, but we'd have to hear this on June 20th. So is there a motion?
Motion.
Good. Is there a second? Second. All right. Motion's been made by Corey, seconded by Ethan. Questions, concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 5C, Stormwater Management Plan number 21-34, 2179 Lois Lane. Ralph.
Is anyone here on behalf of this?
Approach the board. You'll need to speak directly into the mic so that we can capture you on the Zoom. So you can take it right off of there if you want to and speak right into it. Sometimes that's a little easier as well too. And just state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Joel Commanda with Inland Design. On behalf of the Cardenas, who are also here this evening for this project at 2179 Lois Lane. We're proposing to put a pool and associated patio in their rear yard. And we've gone through several rounds of reviews with the township engineer. We session on Friday, addressed technical comments. And they're in place. Then there's two modifications that questions on this application. The first is to provide a blanket easement for stormwater controls rather than detailed easement due to the irregular shape of the bed and some of the piping in the rear yard. And the second is for loading ratio of the storm PMP. Again, the site is constrained by easements already, and there just wasn't space to reduce the footprint of the bed. And that was supported by the geotechnical engineer and also the town engineer. So happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Gentlemen, questions?
So the most recent, it's the March 1st DMA letter.
Mhm.
Okay, just making sure I got
Yep.
the right one.
Yep.
Yeah. Straightforward DMA.
Township engineer's letter. You've seen the township engineer letter, obviously, Joel.
Yeah. Live public comments
Yep.
that are still outstanding.
Couple of modification requests, stormwater management items. Questions, gentlemen? Anything?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Looks like a nice project.
No, staff? Anything else? Okay, all right. All right, thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Okay, gentlemen. DMA's March 1st township letter, review letter, most recent comments. You just heard from the applicant's representative on their response. Questions or concerns? If not, is there a motion?
Take a motion. Motion to accept the stormwater management plan number 21-34 for 2179 Lois Lane, subject to the township engineer's review comments.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Corey. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Enjoy the pool.
When will it get done? Okay, I was gonna say, we'll be done like
We're-
next year.
So we're
or-
coming back. Based upon the weather, we might be there tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Okay, item number 5D. Ralph, thank you for putting this on here. I appreciate that. I had asked that if we have a couple of minutes, if we could, at a public meeting, just to discuss this item. So, we all have been, maybe not all of us, Roger and Mike, you're new back onto the board, but this topic of the county's drug task force and the funding for the drug task force has continued to get a lot of attention across the community, and both at the county level and municipalities are all having this discussion. So I just thought we'd have it out there. We had a letter from District Attorney Heather Adams and outlining a request for funding. So thoughts, discussion. Ralph, where are we at in budgeting for this year? How have we been looking at this?
Yeah, this expense was not budgeted in the 2022 budget. The last time we had made a contribution to them was in 2020 for DTF funding. And since that time, the 2021 budget, 2022 budget, it has not been included.
Well,
Thoughts,
there's a reason
Mike?
we didn't contribute to this last year. Is there any history there anybody can share?
Ethan, you want to just give your perspective on this, Corey, where we've been and how we've been approaching this?
Put it on me. I can give
Sure.
give a summary.
Sure.
Great
So-
question, Mike, by the way.
Yeah. So the history is we've been, I would say, in my experience on the board, big fans of the drug task force. We think it's a vital need of the community, of the county. We had concerns about the sustainability of the funding for that, as well as multiple other townships. Lancaster County Association of Township Super LCATS even passed a resolution calling for a sustainable funding piece that didn't rely on voluntary contributions from municipalities to set the funding. We believe it's a valuable thing. It should be, if the county wants to run the draft task force, then they should fund the task force. If they're asking us to voluntarily fund it, but then they don't let us have any oversight in how it's run, it's essentially taxation without representation. But it is an important piece towards combating drug trafficking in Lancaster County. So there's been some disagreement between multiple townships and the county commissioners on this for quite a few years. And so several municipalities have basically said, until there's a sustainable funding source or a way for the townships to be part of that oversight of how the money's spent, we're going to withdraw our funding from the drug task force. And to date, the county commissioners continue to ask for the townships to foot the bill. They provided an incentive of matching funds. But that's just, there's no real reason for that other than they like it. Heather Adams, the new district attorney, came in and provided a report after her first year that called for also a sustainable funding source as probably the most critical piece towards sustainability. She looked at all the surrounding counties. No other county in Pennsylvania or in nearby funds it in this manner. And so she called for that, but didn't say how that would be funded. So since then, there's been decent funding for it. There's been some COVID windfalls and other funding sources that have been identified. But to date, there's no, that I've seen, sustainable funding source for the drug task force.
Correct.
I'm in favor of,
Sustainable from the county.
correct,
In other words, county taxes would pay for it.
county taxes or some sort of county funding or some sort of agreement where municipalities are funding it. Right now, if the municipalities, if everyone else had budget crises, they could stop funding and it would just essentially disappear really quickly. So it's dependent upon voluntary contributions at this point.
Well, I would be concerned, and Chief, I'll just say that when we had our emergency services committee, I'd asked the question, how many crimes are connected to drug activity? I believe you told us 29 to 39%. It was somewhere in there. Is that right? And it would seem like this money is only effective if it's used in collaboration with all the area police departments. And that must be why they're, saying to the local municipality, here's where we need your money. Now, I understand what you're saying. I mean, if the county is very serious about it, they could be looking at all the opportunities to find other funding other than taxes. But if you don't find that some way,
I think one of the things, Corey, you were stressing it there. I don't know if it came out. Ethan, thank you. By the
Yeah,
way, it was
great,
very
great.
comprehensive. Appreciate it. But it was, there's a voluntary ask.
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
who can participate in this?
Right.
And how many municipalities, Ethan, Corey, Ralph, can you say participate? How many of the 60 municipalities in the county have been participating?
40.
Yeah, I was gonna say more than half, right?
More than half. But there has been a resistance on behalf of, over 20 municipalities to not participate in this. And, I think what's happening is municipalities that have been trying to send a message for a number of years to the county that says, this is that important that it can't continue to rely upon the voluntary ask or the sort of passing around the hat and see who's going to pitch in.
and there really hasn't been an answer from the county to that. They just keep asking.
I would say, most recently, this desire to kind of put in some funds to match, to try to make the pot sweeter, to incent
Right.
others to participate has been strong. But I think, the past board has come to the position of, we need to see something much stronger than that. This has got to be taken seriously. And we're not the only municipality who has been growing concerned about it.
What is the initials for our Municipality Association.
LCATs.
So has LCAT's come out with a statement about this?
Uh,
Public statement about
I can't remember myself. What has the LCAT's position been on this, Ralph?
They had been trying to work with county commissioners and the DA's office to develop a solution of some sort that would address the problem of municipal involvement in decision-making, as well as I think what you've had is an unfair situation where you've had, 40 or so municipalities contributing and supporting it, and another 20 or so not, but still gaining benefit from the task force operation. So I think those discussions have slowed, but I think there's still effort there that LCATS is putting in to try and develop some sort of solution. It just hasn't percolated to the top yet.
And has there been any report on the use of the drug task force money, like regardless of how much they get? It sounds like this money could be really at different amounts every year, depending on who's giving it.
Correct.
It is.
20 of them aren't giving it.
Yeah.
And that
This
has
other
gone
group,
up and down each year. And that amount has gone down. The amount contributed by municipalities has gone down each year for the last 3-4 years. For as long as I can remember, it keeps dropping.
Like, to
down.
me, if it's gone down, it couldn't be a worse time for that to happen. If it's affecting all that they do to combat the drug problem.
Yeah, there's staffing at the task force dropped rather significantly for a while. It's now coming back up, but it hasn't reached what I would say is full staffing for a number of years.
Do the agencies that provide staffing, do they get any monetary benefit or credit for providing the staffing?
The task force pays for officer salary only.
Okay.
So benefits are still on the municipality. And there's some overtime money that I think comes from Attorney General's office. I'm not remembering that directly, but so essentially wages are covered or reimbursed to the municipality, but there are other expenses. And we used to have an officer in there a number of years ago, and that was the arrangement. Then it continues now. What was I going to say? There was another point I was going to make.
The benefit, I mean, there's likely, I don't want to say financial benefit, but there's relationship benefit, right? I mean, I guess let me ask the question. There's 10 or so municipalities that provide a body, right? Staffing. Do you get added benefit when you have an individual serving, meaning your township gets more attention from a, please come to the
Thank you,
mic.
Steve. Appreciate it. Thank you. Since we're all looking at you with this conversation.
And so my 2 cents on that question, Corey,
Yes.
would be that if you do have a representative on the drug task force,
Yeah.
then you get work from the drug task force.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had a representative there. If I were to call because of a drug trade or type problem, it's not that they would just ignore me and
Sure.
let me go away. But
Right.
the bottom line is I
Yeah.
get a whole lot more feet on the ground, undercover work done, things of that nature, if we had a representative. And that applies to anybody.
Sure. That was my
Would
question.
or would not have. a
Yeah.
representative.
Yeah.
So the bulk of the
Yeah.
work goes to the city.
Yeah.
And some of the outlying areas surrounding the city.
Right.
But
Right.
I would venture to say the vast majority of it is done in the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long has it been since we had an officer dedicated there?
14 years.
So for the first number of years, we had someone there. I mean, multiple years, we had someone tied to it.
So I came on in 91. And it's 2022, so go back 14 years, that's
08,
08,
08.
right? Okay, so from 91 to 08, consistently had representation at the drug task force. And prior to that, from the 80s. And the monetary contribution is what I'm saying, it's a handshake deal between the county and the municipal governments, $1 per resident. And that's never been changed.
That
So
was
we-
said in 1992. Was that
Yeah.
funding mechanism? So I just pulled up our resolution we passed. I can just read the resolution. It's pretty short.
What year was it? Bevan?
October 2019 is when we passed our resolution. So be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of East Lampeter strongly requests Lancaster County Commissioners fully fund the Lancaster County Drug Task Force for the calendar year 2020 by adding an additional line item in the county budget that addresses all projected shortfalls with sufficient funds appropriated for funding at a minimum the same number of officers that were on duty at the beginning of 2019. Further be it resolved that the funding model and operations of the Drug Task Force shall be reevaluated beginning in 2020 in order to develop a long-term sustainable organization going forward in years 21 and beyond, and that the county end reliance on voluntary donations and forfeiture funds as a means of funding a critical countywide public safety program. Further be it resolved that municipalities, especially those that subsidize an officer to serve in the program, shall be involved in and fully engaged in those discussions to revitalize this county-led initiative for the benefit of all residents.
Good. Thank you, Ethan, for doing that. Thank you, Steve. Roger, you had a question.
So the 40 municipalities that are contributing, wonder what percentage of the population they represent?
It's a good question.
I think that's in
Are they-
Heather's
Are they
report.
contributing based on their population? Is that what the question was?
No, his question was of the population of the county of Lancaster, those 40 municipalities that do contribute, what is their percentage of the population of the county of Lancaster? And now,
I don't know which 40 out of 60 are actually.
the total municipal contribution, Roger, as per the letter from Heather Adams last year was 387,000. That would make them probably, if that was $1 per, that'd make them 60%, 65% of the population, roughly.
That's assuming $1, but look,
Just.
But again,
just
it's one of those ones of $1 per capita is still, like, even if everyone funded at $1,
not enough.
we're still not at
Yeah.
what I would consider to be a healthy, fully funded and operational drug task force.
Yeah.
It's one of, we're still, even if everyone fully ponied up and the county matched it all, it's still not a long-term solution for what we really need, which is a vibrant drug task force.
And
that
do
can
you,
do the
when you
work.
say that, Ethan, you're saying, well, how do you develop a budget if it so happenstance?
And then, because the other one, which part of this came into, is when the drug task force funds started to drop down, they had to send officers back to their municipalities that are essentially done.
Like, we don't have enough money to pay them.
Yeah,
But now that municipality now has a budgeted for an officer that now they have an extra officer and no revenue coming in for that officer. So it throws off the municipality budget. So every municipality participating doesn't know from year to year whether or not, and you can't just lay off officers willy-nilly. It's not a healthy way to run a police department.
the challenge, Mike, if I can go on further, is, we and others, and our chief is here, have agreed, this is a critical public safety issue. We need to address this as a county. 40 years on, 35 years on, however long the DTF has been going, it at some point, and it's probably, mid 2000s, 2008 maybe, we reached a point where the county needed to be responsible and start looking at this from a line item standpoint, from a taxing authority standpoint, and start to fund this as we do other government services. We've got the letter from Heather Adams, and to see that we're referencing that both the municipalities and the county, we resulted in a total donations of $774,000 in 2021. We're funding this through a donation. It's almost as if we're going to do a chicken barbecue to support, the DTF. And it's almost gotten to the point now where, and we weren't the only ones to pass a resolution like that, Ethan. I forget who else did, but there were a number who said, enough. This has got to stop and we've got to take responsibility for this.
So they did not do matching before. At some
Right,
point,
that was new.
they started matching and the total 1,167,658 reflected both the donations and what they matched.
Plus extra
That's over
money.
2 years.
They
That's
chipped
over-
in extra cash as well as the drug task force. I mean, the county has contributed that amount. So they actually contributed extra on top of that. So it's one of, they matched and then they recognized they needed to spend more money, so they did. And that's what they could do at any time.
The 1 year figures at the bottom where it says total of 387 from the municipalities and 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So they dollar, 774 total.
Well, I mean, DA Adams is working hard to, it seems like she's doing what she can to impact this and has been, at least she has it in this letter that she's talking about the funding from the county. They just started the task force against human trafficking. I'm not sure how that's being financed, but I wouldn't expect that there would be an ask. Chief.
Yeah, so the Human Trafficking Task Force is donated man hours from participating agencies. We have one. We have a detective who is on the task force. In fact, he's, for all intents and purposes, heading up the task force because of his experience, but his contribution is paid by us and takes away from his other responsibilities.
So really don't have a budget.
Correct.
It's a volunteer
Correct.
Yeah.
department.
Almost developing, the same type of a model that the DTF did, we've got an issue in the community. Hey, can we bring together, representatives from different forces? We did that in the mid-80s. It lasted for 20 to 25 years or so, reaches a point where, people start pulling back their representatives and then the funding starts to be questioned. And now we're in a position,
Chief, I'm
Same
sorry.
thing.
And the
Same
task force, then the anti-trafficking one, might there be police departments that say we can't afford to give you anybody,
Oh, correct. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So the department is giving that person up, essentially donating their person
That's
to
right.
to that task force.
Well, not on a full-time basis, just to be clear. The drug task force, those officers are on a full-time basis. This is
Correct.
as needed.
hours,
As needed.
not days.
Okay.
So is the question, what do we do with the invoice?
Yeah, I guess, well, let me back up. The discussion was put on the agenda because those of us who were on the board previously had supported the resolution. And when we received the letter from the district attorney, and she's referencing an amount that is still the same as it's been, $1 per, I felt that the board, the new board, should participate in a discussion again, should review the issue again. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to consider, does the resolution still stand as this board's position? Or do we want to modify and change our position, adopt a new resolution saying something different? I just felt that it was that
Makes
important.
sense.
So,
Thank you.
They want the money by,
ASAP, I think.
They've never been specific, I guess by the end of the year would be the deadline.
The staff or the chief have a recommendation on how we respond to the invoice?
It's an unbudgeted request. It is a request for a donation, as was indicated. It's not really appropriately an invoice in my opinion, but
In many ways, just to piggyback, this is similar to the discussion we had on EMS, right? We have multiple regional public safety programs that have crises of funding or sustainable funding or manpower. And the common thread is they all ignore municipal boundaries. And I think this board has historically been, we're willing to work with any of our neighbors and we want to facilitate that working together. But you also need to have, if we're part of something, we need to have some oversight over how that money is spent. That's sort of my big hold up with some of these is historically with the county has facilitated regional cooperation. They have funded things and then passed that bill down to us, whether it's IT services, radio services. Up until this point, the county keeps cutting county-wide services that benefit all the local municipalities to balance their budget and shifts all of that cost down to the municipalities who end up having to duplicate services and spend more than if you had it all consolidated in one place. So the trend has been to move away from consolidation and regionalization. I don't see any course correction coming anytime soon unless municipalities start working together themselves outside of the county to look at that, whether it's EMS or task force. I remember with the previous district attorney, there was conversations of, do we do more regional policing? Do we look at a countywide detective force? Those are the types of conversations I'd rather be having rather than how do we continue to keep a Band-Aid solution working for another year.
Good point. Very good point. I would concur with what you just said. I don't like the fact that East Lampeter Township is not contributing to this. This is year 2 for us, 21 and 22. I don't like it, but back to Ethan's point, we don't have any leverage. LCATS, LIMC, have all taken statements on these issues and has said to the county, you need to step up. County commissioners need to step up and bite the bullet and pull the municipalities together, come up with a solution. And in my estimation, it is you do this on a regional basis, which is at the county. So I'm willing to hold the line with the resolution. I'm willing to go another year, but says to the county, this is not a position that we want to continue to take. This is not where we want to be, but we also don't have any leverage to get your attention to say that this has to stop. I'm willing to stand the ground, but the board, what are your thoughts?
I don't want to dismiss the fact that they've moved somewhat in that direction, but they haven't made a commitment to it. When you said, Ethan, we don't have any control of the money, seems like that's a different issue then. Are we going to fund this equally or not? There's lots of things that we don't tell the people how to do it. We're providing the funding. Expertise in police work, that's their job. But
Now, a solution that I don't think has been really pursued, but I'd be much more open to is if there was a way to have, for the municipalities are participating, to allow the police to have a representative that essentially is even in an advisory capacity. And I'd love to, if there's a way to have, even if it's just the municipalities that have officers in the drug task force, they need a way to budget. I'd rather have an intermunicipal agreement with the county for a funding formula that would go for more than 1 year rather than a voluntary donation. So
I agree with that. I'd like to see that.
So if there was some sort of agreement that we could say, all right, here's what we're committing to funding going forward for X amount of time, and we get an advisory committee and we have a representative on that committee that can give advice, I think that's a workable solution and that can be negotiated. But right now, there's no one negotiating.
Well,
Looking down the road, I mean, EMS is going to be included in that potentially. The whole firefighting is all going to be included in that because 20 years down the road, we're going to do about firefighters and things like that. Eventually, my suggestion to the county is start working on some of these regional projects because you can't look away and say they're not going to happen because they're coming.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We're going to blow away here, guys, in just a moment. Roger, to that point, and I think that sort of undergirds what Ethan is saying is, can East Lampeter continue to send a message to the county that says we're supportive of these regional efforts? There are some things that local government can do and can do it much more effectively, maybe even cost effectively, if it's done at a regional level and the county could drive some of those things. And I think, you bring up, fire services, but, let's go to EMS. We've been here before, LEMSA has been before us a number of times, for you guys just recently, but, Bob May continues to make the case. There needs to be a concerted effort on behalf of, local government leaders to address these issues. And I think the county is in a great position to drive some of these. Ethan, you're right. When Craig Stedman was the DA, we attended a number of conversations, meetings, and he was looking at the potential of a county detective force. I think that it's time for the county commissioners to I think look at some of these again and decide at what level are you going to step up and help these, or are you going to almost enable them to just kind of die on the vine by only halfway supporting these. So
I don't think that not supporting it right now is changing anything, although there has been some improvement. What if we tabled it and said, we'd like to hear directly from the county commissioners, this township, we see what the donation is you're asking of us. We have some, serious questions about that before we make a decision on it. We'd like you to directly tell us your thoughts on these questions, since there's no timetable on it. I'm sure they want it as soon as they can.
There was a time in previous administrations where the county commissioners and the district attorney would regularly meet with, they would come and give a presentation on the drug task force, so they would come and actually talk about county issues. That hasn't happened.
I'm afraid, Chief, that there's a resource here that would help us. I realize you're saying the money may be a little bit more in the city, but I can't believe working against, drugs in the city doesn't help a lot of the outlying areas too. But I think Adams is doing a great job, but I don't know enough about what they're using this money for. And I don't know how you put a budget together if you don't know how much you're bringing in, or they're estimating 40 of them give. So it's going to be around this number. And now that allows us to do certain things that could be more expensive than in the regular budget.
Mike, that's a great point. And I think that I don't think any of us would disagree. Any of us that were on the board before would disagree with what you just said. What I'm hearing from you, Mike, is, could we table this, not reject it, but not forward a contribution? And can we arrange for a conversation with a representative of the county that, presses them on some of the issues that we've been consistently putting before them, and re-engage and try to have a conversation again about this issue?
I'm really saying it because, not giving them the money isn't changing it really, because a lot of people are. And they may be thinking like I am, gee, I don't want to not contribute to that. I read the arrest, I get the Crime Watch report, and I see an arrest in Leola for very serious drug selling. And, I'm like, we need people on this all the time. Not that our guys aren't doing it, but it's like, this is a regional problem. The person's driving over there, making a sale and coming over here, and the lure of easy money. So,
And we participate, we have an officer at the federal side. So, and then there's other folks who have officers who participate at the state level as well. So you've got varying levels here. But I think the big one is you're seeing the revenue coming in from municipalities is dropping. The match from the county has backfilled that drop in funding. And then when they need more, the county has money and they have decided to spend it.
I think that would be a point in a letter, or when we get a discussion time with someone, just to say, look, here's the good side of it, but we also see that this is not fair. I don't think it's fair. And I don't know how you put a budget together doing that. Unless you say there's certain services we can't do.
Yeah.
We're not going to do undercover work. We're not going to.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Any other words, Steve? Anything?
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate what
I
you're
can
doing.
appreciate both, all sides of the argument.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't want to deprive something, at the same time we're trying to get attention for something. There's no easy fix here for you gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, the fix isn't here.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's right. That's right. The fix is, number one, the municipalities who are not participating. But then probably the foundational issue is, even if they were all participating, it would still be at a voluntary level. And we need a government resource at a regional level to help solve this. So, okay. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. So I'm hearing Mike, suggesting and asking for, a different approach than just no and rejecting District Attorney Adams' request. So I can support, the effort to arrange for a conversation, arrange for a meeting, send a letter, make our point again, referencing the resolution that we passed, along with some of our, fellow municipal leaders, and the issue still remains. We can see it's not being fixed, and we're troubled by this. We're actually, struggling as a board to not support this. And we didn't in the 2022 budget, but we're looking for a conversation so that we can push this further. Thoughts about that statement?
Or reach out. I know we've had some changeover in leadership at LCATS since LCATS passed their resolution. But I think LCATS is probably the best vehicle to do that level of engagement. Individual townships, I don't think have the.
Mike, would you support us trying to work through LCATS?
Absolutely.
Because they were the ones who initiated that outreach, saying, let's all send these in, let's all handle this way. So you'd support that?
I do.
Okay.
Not just saying no to the money is a quiet, oh, they didn't give or they gave. Hold it. We'd like to support you, but there's some things here that don't make sense. And we've been talking about this and there's no movement. You've had some movement, but you seem to come up with the money when you don't get enough.
Yeah. Okay.
We need a discussion on this. Will you address our points?
Okay. All right. So the outreach would be to LCATS with a similar message. And yeah, the annual meeting's coming up April 30th or something.
It's the end of this month. I think.
March
Yeah.
30th. March
Yeah.
30th. Could we reach out to LCATS, Ralph, prior to that meeting and ask for the topic to be brought up? And if need be, a couple of us are going to be there. We could ask that, Representatives of East Lansbury could stand up and ask for LCATS to engage in this conversation.
I think the expectation is that the county commissioners will also be at this upcoming LCATS meeting. So
Timing's working.
it might,
Okay.
it might work out. But yeah, I'll reach out to
All right.
leadership at
Thank
LCATS
you.
in
Thank you.
advance.
Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike, Ethan. Appreciate that, guys. Corey, everyone's perspective on this. Roger, it's been in place when you were, on before, and the history of this. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate your input too.
Thanks again, Chief.
Okay, item number 6, under new business, 6A, a request for separation distance exemption for high 2350 Old Philadelphia Pike. Ralph, give us a little bit of background here.
Sure. This is a property just a little bit east of here, across the street from the greenhouse operation on Old Philadelphia Pike before you really get into downtown Smoketown. And the existing on-lot system is failing. Property owner wants to replace that system. The current rules at DEP for replacing a system indicate that this new system should be separated from any well by at least 100 feet. They don't have enough space for where they would put this new system to separate it from their own well by at least that distance. And so they're asking for the board, which is the board's position in this system, to grant them that exemption so that they can install their new system.
Okay, okay. Okay, anyone from the public? Tara, anyone on? No one? Okay. Okay, okay. So the applicant can prove that they are not able to meet this requirement.
Yes, they've demonstrated that. The sewage enforcement officer's been involved in locating the new system, and it cannot be that far away from their existing.
Okay, all right. So applicant's asking us to, I guess, to exempt them from the well isolation distance. Questions, concerns, gentlemen? Is there a motion?
My only concern, if you will, would be that I'm not able to tell from their drawing or any information that we have how far they are from their neighbor's well. So my suggestion would be that we ask the applicant, if the board's inclined to grant the exemption subject to either verifying that the new system would be more than 100 feet from their neighbor's well, or they get a letter from their neighbor indicating that their neighbor's okay with it.
So very similar condition that is placed upon them, you're asking us to place upon them for their neighbor. Okay.
What's to the east of the property? Then is another house
Right there.
Two
It's a
houses.
farm. Yeah, between the house immediately east of Highs is a farm field that goes all the way to Whitmer Road.
Right here. Their well is, driveway's there. Their well's here. The neighbor's well has to be further away from their well.
Right, 'cause it's 92 feet to their property line.
So it's at least 92 feet, so long as the neighbor's well isn't
8
8
feet
feet.
on the other side of the property line.
Pull it up there, Tara.
I am going as fast as the machine will let me.
I wouldn't have any problem asking that they speak to their neighbors about it. I think it's.
We're conditioned on a,
Ethan,
but it's also hard to,
per your view of it, you think it's,
And this is
what's that, Mike? You said, how would you verify it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of even how you make a motion
get them.
and how you enforce it.
or just they provide a letter from the neighbor.
Yeah, I think that's what Ralph
or
is
verify
suggesting.
It's 100 feet.
Staff is suggesting just, talk with the neighbor, have the neighbor submit a letter that says that they recognize that this is the situation.
There's also the possibility that the neighbor's connected to public water. Of course, if that's the situation,
It's not an
it doesn't
issue.
matter at all.
All right. Is there a motion?
Make a motion for Brian and Melissa High, 2350 Old Philadelphia Pike. And we give them the exemption, the well isolation distance exemption. But getting a letter from their neighbors that their well is outside the 100-foot rate distance and or that house is on public water.
Good. Okay. Motion's been made by Roger and seconded by Corey. Questions about the motion? Okay. All right. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Item number 6B, once again, an item that came up, Ralph and I had a brief conversation about this week. Chair of the West Earl Board of Supervisors had reached out to me, and they're looking at their zoning ordinance, they're looking at their comprehensive plan, and wanted to know if there was any interest in updating the CV region comprehensive plan. Maybe they would go that direction as opposed to doing their own comprehensive plan. Ralph, does the MPC require that the municipality have their own and a regional, or does the regional supersede their?
Requires that municipality has a comprehensive plan, whether it's their own or a regional plan is silent.
So it could be, based on that, it could be their comp plan. The regional plan could be. Their plan.
Yeah, I mean, the two comp plans that we have are both regional plans.
Yeah.
So those are East Lampeter's plans.
Okay. So when's the last that we updated the CD region plan?
2 years ago.
We did a review, which is required by the MPC, not a full update. That's not required by the MPC.
2019, 2020?
2020.
2020, okay. Westerl participated.
We supplied them with a copy of our review, as well as Lancaster County Planning Commission, as
Yep.
well as Upper Lake Hawk Township and the school district.
Okay, all right. So have you spoken to or been in contact with staff at Westerl? Any of this?
No.
No, okay. Maybe reach out. Let's begin the conversation there. We just did a full review of ours 2 years ago. No reason for us to do another comprehensive review. So if we've submitted our review and our comments, Westerl can do the same, and they'll have their comp plan. I think they're concerned about their zoning ordinance being 40 years old or something, and they needed to update it. They were recognizing that, and that began their discussions of their comp plans. Okay.
A regional plan, in my view, is better than municipality having just a single for themselves. We're in the process right now of reviewing comp plan from West Lampeter Township. That is their own plan. We did the CV region. It made sense to do the CV region. I think it still makes sense to have a CV region plan. If they're going to do a comp plan update or a new plan, my view would be better that it be a regional plan than their own. If East Lampeter and Upper Lake Hawk were agreeable to participate, I would suggest that there ought to be some conditions associated with that. We haven't budgeted anything for that expense this year, but if this is something that this board and the other boards want to do, we could plan for that in next year's budget or the year after that, whenever it would make sense. But there'd have to be, in my view, there'd have to be some commitment to regional efforts.
Yeah.
Right, not us doing the work.
Well, and regional efforts, i.e., parks, open space, some of those efforts that we have not been able to necessarily get the support we need from Westerl to do those things.
And I mean, I think our goal, not on this particular item, but I think our goal is to work regionally on items of regional significance and regional interest. So I would love to have Westerl at the table for a whole bunch of topics. So I think good discussion. And I think that has always been, for those on the board, I would assume we all agree that it's better to work together as a region for these things than to do things on your own.
What's considered the region?
So this would be the Conestoga Valley Regional
Westerl.
Comp Plan. So
Okay.
Westerl, Upper Lake Hawk, and East Lampeter Township.
But to that question, Mike, why, should we have a Lampeter? Should there be more regionalization to our, south?
But we are in another comp plan
Right.
that included West Lampeter, included all the municipalities of LAMC.
Yeah.
Until some of them decided to
Right.
walk away from that and
Yeah.
make their own,
Yeah.
which is what West Lampeter is doing right now.
Yeah, so to your point, Corey, yes, I agree. And I think we should be looking in that way. I think the school district,
makes a lot of-
designation makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Particularly with the interest in parks and open space and things of that
Sure.
nature. But yeah, the greater Lancaster municipal, the central Lancaster, there's a lot of value in those. And I didn't realize that was West Lamphere was doing that. Huh.
I thought
We
that's
just
why you had it
received
on
it.
there.
What's
I
that?
thought that's why you had it
This
on.
is Western.
Oh, no, West Lamphere, not West Earl. West Lamphere
Is doing, oh,
is doing their own. Yeah, staff just said that they've been given a copy of it to review.
Oh.
Did you know that was going on, or
I did not.
you did not until it showed up on the
Great.
doorstep?
Here's our plan. Please review it.
Huh. Okay. And they're not in conjunction with somebody else. It's just them.
No, it's just Westland Peters.
Okay, all right. Well, staff can reach out to West Earl staff and let's begin the conversation as to what would they look for? What do they need? If we've sent review comments and done a review, maybe that's what they need to do, a heavy review, and that could help them with their zoning. Okay. All right, thank you.
I can do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, action items 7A, a resolution for trick or treat Halloween night. LIMC is looking to change their policy. For many years, there was an effort on behalf of the LIMC communities to try to guide and direct that. And I think to clarify or just to clean it up and just make it a little bit less time consuming and diversionary. The date of October 31st is established as trick or treat night. Is that correct? Alan?
That's the action that the LMC took at their last meeting.
Good.
And they're hoping that all of the members will adopt this new resolution to set that as policy for everybody.
Sure.
That policy did grow from the original LIMC effort to be all 60 municipalities in the county until a couple of years ago when it started to splinter apart. So trying to re-engage everybody and get everybody back on the same page.
Okay. All right. So resolution 7A, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Ethan, seconded by Mike. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. 7B, bids for construction of the new impound area.
We had reviewed the plans for the new impound area. Roger saw them go through the planning commission. Mike hasn't seen them at all, I suppose. But the project is to build a new impound area, convert the existing impound area to some additional parking, and put it out to bid. Bids came in. We got 5 bidders. The low bid from HL Weicker for a bid price of $124,540. We had budgeted $120,000, half from the forfeiture fund, half from the capital reserve, and it's pretty close. And I don't think rebidding would change anything at this point in time. So I'm recommending award to HL Weicker for the low bid price.
Okay.
Question, will there be cameras on it?
Yes, we will have coverage of that area.
Okay, is there a motion for to award the bid for the impound area to HL Weicker, $124,540?
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion's made by Mike, seconded by Roger. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. For 7C, excuse me, bids for the 2022 in-place paving materials. Ralph.
Our annual bidding for our paving and oil and chip projects came in, and the per ton price is quite significantly more than what we had anticipated. Timing is everything, I guess. What was included was both for the streets as well as repaving the parking lot at Community Park. The bid for the parking lot came in lower and within the budgeted amount. We inquired about that because quite honestly, it didn't make sense to me initially because of the volume of material that we're going to put on the roads is significantly more than what we're putting in parking lot. The answer we got from the low bidder was that, well, out on the road, they have to do traffic control. There's more people involved. It costs more, and it made sense. Anyway, the price per ton for the park is within budget. The price per ton for the road paving is more than what we had budgeted by, let me see here, I've written it down, about $36,400 more than what we had anticipated. We do have money in the Highway 8 fund that I believe would cover that without creating any issues in future years. I don't think rebidding it would be beneficial. So I'm recommending that the board award to the low bidder, which is H&K Group.
Where are they, Ralph?
They're in Lancaster. We have.
Okay.
So bids for the 2022 in-place paving materials. Is our motion?
Motion to accept.
Okay. Motion is made by Mike. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Corey. Questions or concern? Motion is for H&K Group to be awarded the in-place paving materials contract. Okay, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. 7D, bids for 2022 in-place road maintenance oil and chip materials.
We only received one bid on the oil and chip, which is somewhat disappointing.
Surprised by that.
Yeah.
Is that because the other five just, no, they don't have the time, the team,
Not sure. But Martin Paving does excellent work. And they're very close to what we had budgeted. It's about $1,580 more than what we had budgeted. And I'd recommend awarding to them.
Okay, is there a motion for bids for 2022 in-place road maintenance oil and chip materials?
Motion to approve bid for Martin Paving.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Corey, second by Ethan. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 7E, a resolution in reference to rapid flashing beacon signals for the Lancaster Heritage Pathway crossing at the soon-to-be Ben Franklin Boulevard in Lancaster Heritage Pathway.
So as a part of the Walnut Street Extension Project, and of course the Heritage Pathways being constructed at the same time, as part of that contract, there's one at-grade crossing where the pathway goes over what will be a public street. And that is very near to the roundabout where Ben Franklin Boulevard and the Walnut Street Extension will intersect. Staff felt it would be appropriate to have a flashing warning signal there. PennDOT considers those sorts of flashing signals in the same vein as your normal traffic signal. You have to get a permit to install them. And so Township Traffic Engineer prepared the information, prepared the diagram, prepared the permit, and the board is being asked to adopt the resolution, essentially putting forward the permit application to PennDOT to approve of this, which would be included in the construction when it happens. Walnut Street Extension Heritage Pathway.
Good. Ralph, I'm asking this question and don't remember. So the bituminous trail that comes off of the Greater Lancaster Heritage Pathway and parallels Ben Franklin Boulevard, does that cross over Greenfield and continue along Ben Franklin across the bridge in the business park?
There are sidewalks on the east side of Greenfield Road, but it is not as wide a bituminous facility.
Is there enough space on the road, Ben Franklin, when you get east of Greenfield to paint a bike way on there,
You know, lane.
yeah, or, a travel lane, or, downtown, they've got all the travel lanes with a, biker on it. I don't know, as you
Yeah,
cross
bike lane.
over Greenfield, I don't know why I just thought about that. I don't know if we've talked about it.
We'd have to look and see whether that's something that could be done.
Because High's going to have all the apartments over there. The manufactured housing community is expanding there. And we're going to invite, hopefully, hundreds of people to bike on the Greater Lancaster Heavy Pathway. And they're going to all come across Greenfield Road onto, the trail there to get onto the Greater Lancaster Heavy Pathway. I'm thinking we better look at that.
Again, there will be sidewalks, but I understand that's not good for bikes.
It can be a challenge, and particularly if you've got somebody who's walking a dog and you're coming towards them on a bike, it can get challenging. Anyway, okay. So,
Just a quick question.
Oh,
So
sure.
speed limit on Walnut Street,
35.
35 on Walnut Street, on Ben Franklin.
Undetermined, but
Okay.
yeah, 25 is what would be, it does indicate on this diagram that it's to be 25.
25, okay. And then actually within the circle, usually you see like signs that say 15 or something.
Right, yeah, there'd be an advisory speed
Yeah.
to slow
Yeah.
everybody
Okay.
down.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if as people are, coming off Walnut Street, making the right, on Ben Franklin, because most people are not going to use the circle, I would think, right? To go back the opposite direction they came from, they're going to be essentially going down Ben Franklin.
Yeah, unless they're going to the trailhead.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
but I think
The majority.
majority of people,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hoping there's far more parking at the trailhead than using Ben Franklin Boulevard.
And of course, the first couple of times, everyone's going to route it twice. It's fun.
That's faster than 15 miles an hour.
All right, is there a motion for a resolution for the rapid flashing beacon signals?
Motion accept that?
Second.
Motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Ethan. Questions or concerns? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. A resolution for complete streets. What did I do with it? I have that here, didn't I? Thank you, sir. Oh, here, I just put it away. Thank you. So, Ralph,
This has been discussed by the board in prior years. But obviously we have some new faces on the board, so we need to talk about this again. Another motivation related to this is that the soon to come out program replacing the smart transportation program will offer the benefit of bonus points for applications in municipalities where they have a complete streets policy. So what the complete streets policy really is pointed at are projects that the township would be doing ourselves. So when we're doing a paving project, or we're doing some other road improvement project, that this would require us to look at the complete streets concepts for that project and incorporate them where it makes sense. It does provide flexibility to indicate that there are going to be situations where it doesn't make sense to put sidewalks out in a very rural agricultural setting. Some other type of improvement to make it a complete street might make more sense out in that setting. But in a suburban, a development setting, having places for pedestrians, making sure that other modes of transportation are accommodated on that facility when we're doing that project, as long as the board is comfortable with the expense associated with that. This is what this policy would require.
all right. Mike, Roger, Planning Commission, well over it. Mike,
Seems only advantages the way, I appreciate Ralph breaking it down and,
Yep.
But this is the way of this township, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're looking for
Yep.
accommodation for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Yep, yep.
Uh,
And in, in our township, non-motorized, horse and buggies, scooters, things of that nature.
Motorized scooters. We're all for
Motorized
the new
scooters.
the new motorcycle.
I forgot about that. So they exist. They exist. They exist. So, okay. Questions, concerns?
Just to comment that this resolution is, I would say, much improved from the one we saw 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's enough flexibility for some local things.
Good. Thank you, Ethan. Thanks for picking that out. Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we adopt the complete streets resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Ethan, second by Roger. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Just as sort of coming attractions, we do expect when the county's transportation funding program comes out, that East Lampeter will have an application in for a project. Right?
Good. Very good. Awesome. Okay, 7G, a resolution for local statewide share account grant application. Ralph, what are we putting this in for?
Well, we learned about this just early February is when we learned about it. Had been opened up for a funding round just in late January, I believe. Applications are due in the middle of March. This is a program that does not require any local match. If you have a successful application, it funds your application fully, which is unusual for most grant programs. What staff is suggesting and recommending is that we submit an application for what we consider to be the next things that ought to be completed on the Heritage Pathway project. The one would be I guess I would call it the smaller trailhead at the end of Oak Grove and the associated improvements that would be examined to get the trail from the end of Oak Grove out to Pitney through that residential area. Whether that be, one-way streets or some other improvement, whether there are improvements that are needed to the traffic signals at Pitney and Hempstead, and those related issues. The second part would be to look at the extending the trail farther to the north and east on the GO path from where we'll end as part of the Walnut Street Extension project. We're suggesting that that facility would include the pathway as it's going to be built parallel to the Walnut Street Extension, which is a 16-foot wide pedestrian bicycle facility on what I'm going to call the east side of the PennDOT right-of-way. And then on the west side of the PennDOT right-of-way, the opportunity would be there for an equestrian or horse and buggy type of facility. What we would want to apply for is essentially as much work as we can get done in a conceptual planning effort that is not quite an engineering level of effort. They won't fund engineering.
We'll fund it at 10% with a construction project.
Yeah, so we don't have a construction project yet. So we need to gather certain information about, the right of way, utilities, other issues, as much as we possibly can to get ready to engineer and construct. And that's what we're proposing for this grant application. So we'll at the end of it, if we're successful, we would have a fully developed conceptual plan for these improvements.
Good. Excellent. Okay, is there a motion? Resolution to have staff put forth the application for the local statewide share account.
I should also say that Although we've been efforting this, Tara's been leading the effort, but we've been trying to get information on cost that we would anticipate this effort to be. We think it's going to be in the $125,000 range, but we don't really have that nailed down yet. So assuming the board wants to do this, we'd ask that you give staff the ability to write in that appropriate number when we submit the application. And we promise it won't be ridiculous. It'll be somewhere in the vicinity of 125,000.
Sure, yeah. Not less than $125,000. Go for it. No, I think we can support it. So looking for a motion for the resolution. So moved. Okay, motions are made by Mike. Okay, seconded by Rogers. Or questions, discussion? Nothing? Okay, so motion is to allow staff to put forth the application in an amount that is reasonable based upon staff's evaluation of what this would cost. Okay, all right. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, manager's report, Walnut Street Extension. Ralph?
Yeah, just some additional information about the Walnut Street Extension and Heritage Pathway project. We are continuing to work on agreements that would be necessary in order to facilitate the project. One agreement will be between the township and PennDOT, which will essentially allow the township to operate and maintain the trail on PennDOT's right-of-way for the distance that it's planned as part of that project. The other obligations would be associated with the roundabout itself, which involve pavement markings, signage, and maintenance of the inside of the roundabout. The second agreement would be between the township and High, and would, for our purposes, transfer the responsibility to maintain the center of that roundabout to High, as well as some of the stormwater facilities that are necessary as part of the project. And they've also indicated that they're willing to pay for the street lighting associated with the roundabout for the first 10 years of operation. There's some other crossing of T's, dotting of I's provisions in there, but those are essentially the guts of those two agreements. Those two agreements will come to the board for action, hopefully at your next meeting. That's our expectation at this point. They are planning to put the project out to bid this month. And we offered to host a pre-bid meeting, which would be a meeting in here that contractors who are interested in the project could come and hear about the project, ask questions, etc. And at this point, the schedule would expect that maybe in June or July, there would be a pre-construction meeting. We've also offered to host that here. Not scheduled yet, but may happen, just to give them a space to do that. I think that's the latest and greatest on that project.
Ralph, so it's 16 feet of usable walk bicycle on the east side. On the other side is enough room that perhaps buggies or horses could be on there. Do I have that right?
That would be for the area beyond the proposed trailhead.
Beyond the trailhead.
That would be right behind the College of Health Sciences.
Right, okay.
So,
Okay, and then is the area that's all the way down to the trailhead off of Oak, is that closed at sunset or anything like that, or is
yeah,
it considered a park, or is it?
those are things that PennDOT would essentially be leaving to the township as far as how it's to be operated.
Yeah.
We've talked with them about those sorts of issues. We've talked to them about winter maintenance, that, we might prefer to put up signs that say no winter maintenance, but we may not, but we have that option at this point. So things like closed at
Right.
sundown.
Right.
Those are things that my expectation is we're going to view it much like a township park and operate it similarly. But those will be decisions that, will get input from the park board. The board will ultimately make those decisions. We'll have to address how we sign it and how we provide any enforcement that's necessary out there.
Get those crazy bike riders with the lights on there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if it's a comment, if we hope it's success, the goal is people start using this as a commuter route. I would recommend not closing it from dawn to dusk because you're commuting both of those times, as well as if there's a way that we could do. We're not required to do winter maintenance, but we would attempt to do winter maintenance. In other words, once everything's cleared, if we can, run a bobcat down the thing, if it's a big snow, usually those clear up, but a bike path that has sections of snow, if it's a commuter one, people do commute on bikes.
Yeah, I think the point of commuting is important, Ethan, just because we're looking, the Greater Lancaster Heritage Pathway is always envisioned roughly from running from, say, the health campus, out towards the east, and encouraging, the moving of people, with alternative forms of transportation from, the health campus through downtown out to us. So I would say, if we can look at it in terms of, hey, how do we, make this accessible at all times?
And further information about that 16-foot wide piece of paving, there will be pavement markings to separate pedestrians from bicycles. So that's also part of what's planned.
Good. Okay. MS4.
MS4, Tara passed out some information about where we are with MS4. I was just wanting to sort of summarize again, what the MS4 program is. It's a permit that is issued to the township. We're required to do a variety of things to meet the requirements of the permit: public education, illicit discharges, pre and post construction activities, other stormwater management issues, as well as do pollution reducing projects. Pound reduction requirements that have been set forth in our permit. So we're still some ways from satisfying that pollution reduction requirement. We're working on it, coming up with more projects. One of the ones that we're working on actively right now is down through the Hack campus. So we're hopeful that that'll move forward. Hack is being cooperative, and we can get a lot of reduction out of that project. But we are looking for others and expect that we will. The Sewer Authority, with the efforts of the Board of Supervisors, is also the owner and operator of the stormwater system. They're charging and collecting the stormwater fee from the community, which is giving us the resources to do all of these things to meet our permit obligations. So that's sort of in a nutshell the relationship overview of stormwater management and the MS4 program.
Good.
The final point, the 2I received DEP feedback, was that in our favor or against us?
It was actually in our favor.
Home run. Good job.
You're not talking about MS4.
Oh, yeah, he's talking about PRP scorecard.
Yeah,
Oh, the
sorry, I jumped
scorecard?
down to that.
Yeah.
I was trying to.
Received DEP
Oh,
feedback.
I apologize.
Oh.
No.
No?
It's under
The-
2I.
The LFT guidance was in our favor. The PRP scorecard was not in our favor
Oh.
at all.
Oh.
Yeah, that hurt.
That hurt a lot.
Unfortunately, this is typical of DEP. There's,
They changed
Different-
methodology.
yeah,
Yeah, we've seen this before.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So do we have enough projects in the pipeline to hit the 2024 objective, or are we still trying to source projects to meet that requirement.
We actually just met last week with 3 different potential PRP project landowners to get them interested and moving for the 2024 deadline.
You're welcome to my short section of creek bank.
I was just gonna say, I may be stepping forward.
There's sediment going in there 20, like, it's just, I'm losing dirt so fast. But that's because John's dam.
You want to remove another dam? You just put it there. Thank you.
We're not nervous at this point, but, we're anxious that, we need to get these projects going and get them in the ground. So we are working aggressively to make sure that we meet that obligation.
Okay.
The other thing I want to mention, unless there are other questions about that.
Nope, else from me.
Was that we did receive the L&I accessibility audit report, which was covering a period of 5 years. And what they do is they come in, they identify certain projects that have happened over the last 5 years. They review all the paperwork, and then they actually go out and look at the projects to see whether or not all of the accessibility requirements have been met in the actual completion of the project. So they found that the township had done everything that we needed to be doing, and it was a good report. They also found that for each of the projects, there were things that the owner had done after the completion of the project that created accessibility problems. That's sort of an ongoing challenge, but not unexpected. I think they were suggesting that we put something on the certificate of occupancy that indicates that they, owners shouldn't be making any changes that would affect accessibility or something. We'll have to take a look at that. But it was a good report, and Colin was exposed to how that works, and so he'll be the one on the hot seat 5 years from now.
Good for him. Okay. Anything else?
Nothing. Thank you.
All right. Questions or concerns for staff, guys? Anything from the manager's report?
Motion to adjourn.
Nothing else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Ethan, Corey, second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Turn your mics off, guys.